It all started as a regular afternoon at an upscale jewelry store, bright lights, polished counters, and quiet conversations about diamonds and gold. But what happened next turned an ordinary shopping trip into something that no one in that store would forget. A teenage boy, just 16 years old, walked in with his mom, excited to look at a special gift for his sister's graduation. But the mood shifted fast. One customer, a white woman standing a few feet away, suddenly gave him a hard stare. Moments later, she pulled out her phone, and within minutes, the police were on their way. She claimed he looked suspicious, that he didn't belong there. The teen stood frozen, confused and embarrassed, while his mom tried to stay calm. But here's where things took a turn she never expected. As the officers walked in and asked questions, his mom slowly reached into her purse, not for her ID, not for her wallet, but for something that made the room go silent. The woman's face went pale the second she saw it. What was in his mom's purse that made everyone stop in their tracks? And how did this moment expose the truth behind a snap judgment that could have gone so differently? Stick around, because what happened next is something you'll want to see for yourself. The badge she pulled out wasn't just any ID. It was an official FBI credential, shining in the overhead lights like a warning siren. The air got thick with tension. The officers paused mid-sentence, looking between the woman and the teen, now standing quietly beside his mom. The woman who made the call stepped back, her confidence suddenly gone. But there was no yelling, no scene, just silence, and the heavy weight of what that badge meant. This wasn't the first time the mom had experienced something like this. She'd worked undercover for years and had seen prejudice unfold in ways that most people couldn't imagine. But today it hit differently because it involved her son. She knew what could have happened if she hadn't been there, if she hadn't shown up at just the right time, and the look on her face said it all. This was about more than one moment. It was about every moment like it that goes unseen. The teenager, still trying to make sense of it, kept glancing at his mom, unsure of what came next. Meanwhile, store employees stood frozen behind the counter, unsure how to react. The woman who made the calls stayed quiet now, eyes darting around, waiting to see what would happen next. But what did the mom say that truly changed everything? The room stayed still, but the emotions under the surface were anything but calm. The police officers exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to handle the situation now that the woman in front of them was federal law enforcement. One of them asked politely to speak with her in private, but she didn't move. Instead, she looked directly at the woman who made the call and asked one simple question. Asterisk, what exactly did you see that made you call the police? Asterisk. The question hung in the air like a challenge, quiet but sharp. The woman stumbled over her words, saying something vague about body language and acting suspicious. The teen didn't say a word, but his eyes said enough. He'd been through this before, just not like this. This time, he had someone in his corner with power, real power. But even with that, the sting of being profiled in public, of having strangers judge him for simply existing, was something no badge could erase. In the background, a store manager quietly stepped forward, trying to smooth things over, but the mom wasn't letting it slide. She asked for security footage, she asked for names, and while she kept her voice calm, her presence filled the room. What would she do with the footage? And how far was she willing to go to make sure this never happened again? The atmosphere in the jewelry store had completely changed. Customers whispered under their breath, store staff shifted nervously, and the two officers now stood awkwardly at the edge of the scene. The teenage boy still hadn't said much, but his hands were clenched in his pockets, jaw tight. His mom, still holding her FBI badge, turned to the store manager and asked again, Asterisk, I need that footage. Now. Asterisk, her tone wasn't angry, but it had weight, the kind that made people move. The manager hesitated, clearly unsure if this was something they should hand over. But she wasn't just asking, she was demanding accountability. The woman who called the police tried to step out quietly, head down, as if slipping away would erase what she'd done. But the mom wasn't done. She calmly asked the officers to take her statement, not as a bystander, but as the target of an unnecessary 911 call. That changed everything. Now the store had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching. The tension reached a breaking point when the teen finally spoke. "Doe, you think I'm a threat because of how I look?" He asked, looking directly at the woman. His voice was low, steady, and more powerful than anything said before. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. And just like that, the room waited for her answer, for justice, for what would happen next. Before the woman could respond, another voice broke through the tension, shaky but clear. A store employee, a young man who had been quietly watching from behind the counter, stepped forward. "I need to say something," he said, eyes fixed on the floor. Everyone turned. "I saw what happened, and this isn't the first time." His voice cracked slightly. "She's done this before. Last month, it was another young black guy. Same thing, accused him of stealing, called security. He left in tears." The room, already on edge, seemed to freeze again. The mother narrowed her eyes, and the officers exchanged another look. This wasn't just a one-time mistake, it was a pattern. The stakes had suddenly shifted. What began as one act of racial profiling was now unfolding into something bigger. This wasn't just about her son anymore. It was about how many others had walked into that store and walked out humiliated, or worse. The woman who made the call turned defensive, raising her voice slightly. "I was trying to protect the store, that's all. You don't understand." But the damage was already done. Her excuse only made the silence heavier. Then the teen's mom calmly asked, "Can we run that footage now?" Her voice didn't waver. The store manager, now visibly sweating, hesitated again. Because if that footage showed what she believed it did, the story wasn't close to over. It was just beginning. The manager finally gave in and led them to a small back room where the security cameras were monitored. The officers followed, the teen and his mom close behind. The woman who made the call hesitated at first, but eventually trailed after them, her arms crossed tightly. The footage started to play. It showed the moment the teen walked into the store, smiling, chatting with his mom, looking at the display cases. Nothing suspicious, nothing out of the ordinary, just a kid shopping with his parent. Then came the part where the woman turned to watch him, pulling out her phone, whispering to someone nearby, and walking toward the door as she dialed. The room went silent again. The officers watched closely. The store employee, still standing nearby, just shook his head. The mom turned to her son, resting a hand on his shoulder. He didn't say anything, but the relief on his face was clear. The woman who made the call stepped back, mumbling that it had looked different in the moment, but even she knew it was over. The officers nodded, one of them quietly apologizing to the teen. But just as they turned to leave, the store manager spoke up. "There's more," he said. He switched to another camera angle, and there it was. Audio. From earlier, the woman saying, clear as day, "They don't usually shop here. I'm calling before something happens." That moment changed everything. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was proof. Real, undeniable proof. And now it wasn't just a question of what she did, but what would happen to her next. From earlier, the woman saying, clear as day, "They don't usually shop here. I'm calling before something happens." That moment changed everything. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was proof. Real, undeniable proof. And now it wasn't just a question of what she did, but what would happen to her next. The room stayed quiet after the audio played. No one moved. The woman who made the call stared at the screen, her face drained of color. There was nothing more she could say. The officers stepped aside, one of them quietly taking notes. The teen's mom looked at her son, then back at the manager. "I think you know what needs to happen," she said firmly, And she was right. The store launched an internal review, and the woman was banned from the premises. The employee who spoke up later told them he'd been too scared to say anything before, but after watching what the teen and his mom faced, he realized staying silent wasn't an option anymore. The store also agreed to conduct staff training on bias and customer treatment moving forward. As they walked out together, the teen asked his mom, "Why didn't you just yell at her or get angry?" She smiled softly. "Because we don't need to raise our voice to be heard. The truth speaks loud enough." What started as a regular shopping trip turned into a moment that revealed deeper truths about judgment, prejudice, and quiet strength. In the end, it wasn't just a badge that made a difference. It was the courage to speak up, stay calm, and stand tall. And that, more than anything, is what people remembered.